So I'm going to take just a little bit of liquid clay and I'm going to put it on the back of these earrings. Just a little, just enough to be sticky and to hold things on, not to make them slide around. I put it more on the upper part of the earring because I'm going to put a hole in the bottom of this so I can put jump rings through it to hook it to this part. Okay. These were rolled out, I'm going to say, on a number 2, I believe, on my atlas. This was rolled out on a number 3. It's really thin. And then I put my design on it. And I'm just going to hold it down, line it up, make sure there's no air under it. Run my fingers around the edges. We'll do it again. Let me pick it up so you can see it. Let me go down so you can see it. Okay, I've got my post in the upper part of my earring. It will be connected between the 2 holes with jump rings and maybe a bead or something, whatever else I find to stick in there. And there's the second one. And if you want to use a resin, I don't prefer resin. It irritates my ears. And take your post and take your flat part and push it down without distorting the shape of your earring. And can you see that little indentation there? It's right there. I think you can see it. Put that in your raw clay and set your post aside. We'll do the same thing with this one. Just going to push the flat part down in enough to give me some indentation there. And let's see if you can see that. It's right here. Right there. Yeah, you can see it. Okay. These are ready to bake. After they bake, I'll take them out, let them cool. If I need to, I'll put a little drop, and I mean a little drop of super glue on this metal just to hold it in place before I resin it. You put the indentation in there so your resin will be smooth on the back of your earring. If you don't put the indentation in, then your post is going to be sticking up further and it has more of an option to pop off. And that's not what you want at all. These are little post earrings. They were done in a Sculpey mold as well. This is the cabochon mold. And those were the smallest ovals, or pear shape. And this one I will make into a little pendant. I have some backing clay here in the purple metallic, rolled out on a number 3. And this is mainly ceranite, so it's a little bit sticky. So I'm going to put a little bit of cornstarch on here before I use my texture sheet, so it will not stick to the texture sheet. I think I'm going to put an oval jump ring at the top of these rather than to put post in, because I have some purple beads that these would look really pretty from hanging down dangly. I'll put a little bit of liquid clay on these, more for security than anything else. And I'm going to put my jump ring on, and these are oval, so it's going to give me a little bit more room. And I want that jump ring just to hang off the edge just a little bit. But I want it where it connects down in the clay. And you just need enough to come out to put another jump ring on there. And I will cut my back sheet out. Line it up and put it right there, because I do not have a cutter that fits this, because this came from the mold in the Sculpey set, the cabochon mold. So we'll take my craft knife and just gently go around it. And then take my fingers, smooth it out. Make sure that you can still see my jump ring coming out. Press that down around that jump ring. And just straighten it up to where you've got it in there, to where you can get a jump ring on it. So when I'm putting this on, I'm putting the top of my design up to the top of my earring, right where my jump ring is. And just pressing it down. And cutting it out. Okay. Check it front and back. Make sure it's all nice and neat. And those two are ready to bake. I ran it through the machine. Going to put a little bit of cornstarch on it. I like to put my clay on my texture sheets so I can actually see what I'm doing, because you'll be able to tell what the design on coming through on this back side of if you've got all your texture on there or not. And I think this one I'm going to use an eye pin to put in there. And to do that, if I just stick it down in there and keep it straight, then eventually it's going to pull out. So I'm going to put a curve in it. And I don't want it to be any longer than what my piece is. So that's going to fit really well right there. And here's my little hook I put in there. Right there. You want to keep it flat so your piece will stay flat. And I'm going to put a little bit of liquid clay on that. I just want to make sure that my eye pin's in the center. And all I can see is the hoop. And again, I'm going to put a flat part of my design up at the top and just work it down. Make sure there's no air. And we'll cut this excess off first. I'll go in with my X-Acto knife and cut right along the edge. And you can bake this at first and then add your liquid clay and your whatever type of finding you're going to use. I'll smooth my edges down. So here's my back side, and there's the front side, and that matches those earrings really well. It just gives you another hanging option in case you don't have some of the other stuff. I just want to show you the difference in cutting something out. But you know, with your cutters, you get a good clean cut on your items no matter what size they are, that your cutters are. Okay, you've got a piece of clay and you want to put a hole in an earring or a pendant or something to hold a jump ring. Everybody says poke it with a toothpick or poke it with a needle tool. Okay, I have both here. Okay, let's say this is an earring shape. And we need a hole right here, up in here, to put a jump ring through in order to hold this piece to another piece. Okay, let's take a toothpick. Okay, that made a hole, see, on both sides. Not big enough yet though, because you need a little bit larger one. So you take your toothpick and you go down in and you make your hole large enough to accommodate your jump ring. Well, number one, your hole's already distorted in shape, but when you take something and poke it into clay, whether you make it larger or not, that clay you're pushing down on has to go somewhere. It has to move to make your hole. So it goes outwards all the way around it. And that makes the part right around your hole on the outside of it a little bit thicker because that clay moved out there. You're distorting your clay and you're distorting your hole when you poke it. Let me get a larger one and show you. If you have a small cutter, and if you don't have cutters like this and you want to do holes in earrings, a coffee stir, one of those little straws like a coffee stir, will work really well. Okay, so can you see the difference in a clean cut hole? It's not fatter, the clay's not any fatter around it or distorted because I went in and cut that piece of clay out. It didn't have to go anywhere. There was nowhere for it to go. It ended up in the cutter. So when you poke holes in there, you're distorting the clay around the hole and you're distorting the hole itself, the shape of the hole. So it's so much better and cleaner to cut your holes out rather than to poke them. Okay, the rest of these are pendants. Okay, these are Natasha beads, and they are cut with a zigzag blade, and that's what gives them this look. I don't know what you call it. It's wavy. It's not flat. I put the two sides together. You can see there. And the last piece of Natasha, this is a Natasha on both of these. I had a piece left and I just cut down the center of it with my blade. So I have actually two sides of this with that wavy blade on it. And I'm going to turn these into long earrings. And I've got a smaller one because this side of my my earring is smaller. So let me move this one out of the way. I'm just going to punch a hole right up there at the top. And that should be enough all the way around to hold the jump ring. Okay, so we've gone through don't poke holes, cut them, and adding your stud to the back of your earring and sandwiched in between pieces of clay for a permanent bond. Glues won't hold. They'll pop off eventually. Liquid clay won't hold. It can get warmer as you wear them on your body temperature. And like I said, they're not, liquid clay doesn't have an adhesive. I just poked a hole in the center of this on both ends. I'm just going to use this as a long pendant because I love the design in it. And I'll make charms or something and hook on the bottom of that. This one is another Natasha that I cut out with the wavy blade. Okay, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to place, this is a good way to apply clasps onto bracelets, like a cuff bracelet or something that you've made and you need to put an end on it. I'm going to put a little bit of liquid clay down in there. And I will take my bail and I will push it down in there just until the top of it's up. And that gives me a hook to put on the top of my pendant with. This one, I added a layer, a thin layer. I think it was on a number 6 or a number 7 of translucent to the back and the sides of this because I couldn't get the inside crease out. And I wanted it to show the marbleization on the back of here. So I'm actually going to do the same thing with this one. There goes my little hole. I will put my liquid clay down in there. I guess these are called bales. I put that one in wrong. There we go. And just make sure that you close your clay back up around it. Right in here. It doesn't matter what texture sheet you use. I just find that if you're working on something small, like these things, it's easier to have a smaller design in your texture sheet. Okay, let's go with this one first, because I thought this would look good again at the top of this, and it's all the same principle. You've got to embed the metal in between 2 layers of clay for it to hold permanently. A mechanical bond is what it's called. We're just going to put some liquid clay on the back of this. I'm going to put my bezel on up here. I actually want a straight edge on this. Doesn't matter which way the design goes, I just need a straight edge to put up here at the very tip top. Run it down where it has no air bubbles. And just like the earrings, take my knife, just cut it out. And smooth out your edges. Push it down. Run my fingers around it. Get my edges smooth. I've got a way to hang it on top. Here's my back. And since I'm apples, I always put my signature on what I make. This is my little apple stamp. I'll go back through and put Apple's signature on everything that's in my baking tray. Here's my little apple. I'll make sure all of my sides are smooth. All of my little things are straight. And all of that. But I think you get the gist of it now. As long as it has metal and you're hooking it to clay, you need to embed it, whether it be a bail, whether it be an eye screw, whether it be a jump ring. It needs to go in between 2 layers of clay. Your earring post, they need to go in between 2 layers of clay. I trust it and use it far more often than I do the resin technique. Same thing with your pin brooches. Embed your pin back, the flat part, in a layer of clay. Cut it out, set it down, and cover it over, or just press it down and cover it over. Same thing with the tie tack pin backs. Cover that little part in clay just like you do your post earrings. Not exactly an earring or a pendant, but similar in how you do it. This is just some scraps I had left over from another pendant I made. I'll show you in a minute. Or you've already seen it probably. And this is the backing clay I put on there. I did put a texture on the back. I used my texture sheet and put my layer of clay down. These are brooches, pin brooches. And this one, these two, you do them the same way you do post earrings. This is a tie tack, and it has, let me see if you can see it. See that little point right here? All of them have that. And you need to go in and cut that off first, so it will lay flat underneath your clay. And you just put it down on your clay, and this is still all raw clay. I did not bake it in between. If your brooch had really big designer things on the front and things, you may want to bake it first. But you just set your tie tack bottom in there, and then you put your piece of clay over the top of it. And once it's baked, then it hooks with this little tie tack push bar thing. I put a little bit of liquid clay in between these layers. And you want to do that even though it's raw clay to raw clay, just for that extra security, to make sure that your tie tack is embedded in there. This is what the tie tack looks like. And this part is like your earring post. That's what goes in between the 2 layers of clay. after it's baked and you put your finish on it or whatever you're doing to it, then you put your back on it. Now this one, just a little bit different. This is a pin back, and it's all embedded in the clay. And this little sharp point goes right underneath that little bent over area right there. And that's what hooks this in. And it's just what it looks like not being in the clay. And you just put it in there and you can press it down into your raw clay and cut this out and then put a piece over it. Or you can just press it all down in and cut these out, and you just need to leave out your little spring on this side and your connector on this side. That's the only things that needs to be sticking out, and that's the same thing on a hair barrette. A hair barrette works basically the same way. These are another clay slice I had that I was just cutting up, and this is going to be the front, this is going to be a pendant, and I just put, and then I put a hoop on the other end of this. Same thing with the earrings. And I know these don't look like much now, and they're small compared to what I normally make. But my oldest daughter says, Mom, not everybody likes big jewelry. So, I was making some smaller things. Did the same thing with this, put the eye pin right through it, and then made a hook on the other end. And this had 2 or 3 loops that I could do. So that gave me a little bit more decorative things on the end there. These are going to be earrings. These are Natasha's. And I just cut them like you normally would a Natasha. If you put them together, you see where they match up. I'm going to put a little eye screw at the top of each one after they're baked. But before they bake, I'm going to put a little pilot hole in there so it knows where to grab, and it will grab the baked clay and screw in just like a screw. So a little hole just like that is all you need, and then you can hook your jump rings and ear wires and stuff from that. This is a pendant that goes with it, and I have connected the 2 pieces because I didn't put a backing on this because I wanted this marbleization to show. And I took my Christy freezing tool and I just went over my clay and blended it together. And I thought this looked like a little candle shining in there. And I don't know what this is down there, but you know, Natasha beads are really cool. So I'm going to put 2 holes in this one. One on one side and one on the other side, and my eye screws are going to go in that way. The back of your piece, I don't care what it is, whether it's jewelry or whatever you're working on, as long as you can see the back, it needs to be professional looking. So I had cut these out with a cutter, and these are going to be dangling from these posts. So I'm going to put my back on. Before I do anything else to it. And I'm going to make sure the back and the front's connected. If this had a design on it, or if you had done a veneer with 3D work on there, bake the front first. And then add liquid clay and add on your back. Unless you're doing a dangle type earring. These are little cutters, and they're actually electrical ferrules, which holds wire, I think. And they come in all different sizes, and they're the best things to punch holes with and cut out your cut out a hole in your piece rather than poking it. And I'll show you what happens when you poke it in a minute. So I've got my front on and my back on. I've got to decide how these are going to dangle, because this is going to be, I don't want to put that on there yet, this is going to be where my post goes in. So I think I'm going to set these at more of an angle, because the necklace or the pendant I've got going with it is at an angle as well. I'm going to use this one that has the green cap on it, and I'm going to use the metal end. And you don't want to punch it too close to the edge or it will actually break. And you don't want it to break. Now see how clean that hole is, front and back. Hey, I'm sorry, I lost the rest of that video. It was about putting your earrings together with jump rings if you're going to do a post on top and a dangle on the bottom. But you'll see that in another video. I did another short video with earrings and how to put your earring studs on safely, embedding them in between 2 layers of clay and also putting them on with UV resin. So that one's out now, so catch it, and I hope you enjoyed this one. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I'll get back with you. Blessings.